In my last video, I introduced the idea of a budget model car, and I wanted to try to build something hopefully anyone could build on the same budget. I also explained where you get your kit can have a major impact on the cost of your project. I had gotten this Revell 66 Malibu at Hobby Lobby on clearance for $8.25. I also showed the basic tools and adhesives that would be needed and decided they would not count towards the cost of this build. That's the fine print. Where we left off was all of the pre-assembly and test fitting was done, and yep, the scoop needed a bit of finessing. With only $8 and change in this project so far, I decided to use this readily available paint. I hope it isn't a mistake. Let's head to the paint booth and see what happens. Alright, we are switching gears, and this is the kind of paint I'm going to use on this model. Keeping with the budget and how cheap I can go, it is Krylon Short Cuts, and this is flat black. $3.99 at the Lobby of Hobby, and I've never used this paint before, and it is made by the K word that shall not be named. And in addition to the flat black, I got the gloss black. You can tell by the way that the cap is. And the red pepper gloss. It is red. I don't know what it's going to look like. The labels are all chewed up because Hobby Lobby has these things with this nuclear tape on there so people don't, graffiti the store, which is probably a good idea. And again, model building is a test. This is going to be the main paint that I use on this model. So we're going to factor in the cost of this. But before we paint, we're going to do something very scientific. I have my trusty Syntec digital scale in grams, and we have the Shortcut flat black. And just to show, it's unused, and I just want to know how much paint is in there. 139 grams. We have the red pepper. It comes in at 137 grams. Oh, that's interesting. 2 grams short. And we have the gloss black. It comes in at 134 grams. After we paint the model, I'm going to reweigh the cans to know how much paint we used in grams, to come up with some kind of equation of how much paint went on the model. Since weighing paint is fun, I have an unsealed Tamiya TS13, and how much paint is in that? That is 136 grams. And I also have a Tamiya color. This is TS14 good old black. It weighs 132 grams. So these are comparable to the shortcuts as far as the weight goes, not necessarily the type of paint. And since we say weighing paint is fun, I have a unopened can of fine surface primer, and it is 214 grams. Remember that. Get the scientific device out of here. Before the hosing begins, here's the atmospheric conditions of where I would apply the Krylon Short Cuts. And since I'm unsure if you really want to see the entire painting process, we're going to fast forward through all that boring stuff. But if you care to see that process, put it in the comments, and maybe I'll post that down the line. Let's get busy. And okay, since we are weighing paint, I have some TS17 gloss aluminum. It is opened. And it is at 114 grams. Because somehow I gotta paint a transmission in the intake manifold. And I need a little bit of silver paint. So we will amortize how much we use here. So after painting the intake manifold and the transmission, it is now at 110 grams. So we're gonna have to do some math. And since I don't have a full-on empty can of Tamiya color, I have this TS13. It's pretty empty, and it weighs 76 grams. So I used about 4 grams of paint, and doing my math, it was about 43 cents worth of paint. So speaking of math, here's the odds of Short Cuts gloss black that we use the most of. There's still a little bit. Starting to get a little tinny. Let's see how much we used. It is now down to 73 grams. Okay, we're gonna have to do some math there. Since I used this color to paint the body, I used the most of it. Almost 75% of it. So we used $2.83 of this color. The flat black, didn't use that much. We just painted the chassis. How much did we use? It is now at 116, so I think it was at about 135. So we used 20 grams of paint. We'll figure that out. I only used about a quarter of the can of the flat black, which came to just over $1. And then finally, the red pepper. It was 135, and we used about 35 grams of paint, so we'll figure that out. Only about a half of the can of the red pepper was used, so it's about $1.71 worth of paint. So speaking of that white primer, yeah, I did use some. Basically on the headers, because I wanted them white. And I also painted the side pipes and this little doodad, which I think is the fire extinguisher. I did it white because the interior, as you saw, is red. So how much white Tamiya primer did we use? It is at 184 now. And we'll look back and see how much it was for the fresh can. So that white primer was actually kind of expensive because I used almost $2 worth of it. I should have bought a can of white paint. Math, not my strongest point. Okay, about a week later, I've got the interior tub that we painted with the Short Cuts red pepper, and I feel like it's dry, or dry enough to start messing with. I was kind of surprised. It was fairly dry, maybe a day or two. Not quite as dry as lacquer because it's enamel, of course, but this was in the food dehydrator for quite some time. And as you can see, it is shiny, which is not ideal, but I have a plan. So let's look at that. So while I was at the lobby of Hobby looking for cheap materials, I found this. Flocking. Hobby Lobby is now selling their own flocking, which is kind of cool. You get this giant container. I mean, it's that big for $4.99. And considering that we get the staple from Ken's Fuzzy Floor, and nothing to take away from good old Ken here, because we have used this for decades. These things, this one was priced at $2.99, and as you can see, you get a little bit more from the Lobby of Hobby. But amazingly, they don't really have, the color selection is kind of lacking. They only have about 10 colors maybe, and amazingly, black is not one of them. So Hobby Lobby, get it together and get black. It seems like that would be the most common. So when I do the flocking, you know, this is clearly bright red, and while somewhat in the space of this, no, we can't really use that. So I bought another one, and this is dark red. And this is my secret to making flocking look good, is you gotta have a couple of different colors. And I would have preferred to have even one more red to mix. And, you know, sure, this is $10 worth of flocking, but again, we're not gonna use it all. And let's get scale out again, since measuring stuff is fun. And that one is 95. And that one is 95. All right, remember that. Let's mix up some flocking. Should be plenty. Some of the bright red. That's plenty. Where's a good stirring stick? That's a terrible noise. You know, I think I want more of the bright red. The dark went a long way. It's like soup, but not. What's it looking like? Red is always kind of a hard color to match, and I don't know, it's kind of like, it's a little bit purple. I think I should have started with this red and added the darker color. It's all right, we got plenty here. And of course, I'm making a mess, spilling it. That's all right, because flocking kind of makes a mess anyway. I don't know, let's just kind of see. Can you see how much of a difference it is? I don't know. All right. Let me show you how this works. So we got the interior, and I like paper plates. They're cheap. It's a tool. We're not going to factor in the cost of paper plates. And we have the bowl of mixed up flocking. And here is the most important tool you need, is a strainer. Because this is going to eliminate all the lumps. Because I'm going to dump that in there, and then we're going to do all that, and then let it sit. And the application, or the glue, if you will, for this will be the Short Cuts paint. So, gonna head over to the paint booth, hose this with a fat coat of red pepper, and then we're going to sprinkle all of this all over it, door panels and everything, and maybe that'll hide some of these ugly pen marks. And yeah, I should have really taken care of that big zit there, but we'll pretend we didn't see that. So let's go do that. that's drying, let's get it out of the way. Get all that extra flocking out. And then see how much we actually used. That is now at 94 grams. And that's at 94 grams. So we'll do that math. You might be saying $10 for the flocking is expensive, but I only used 20 cents worth and I have so much left. That's really cheap. You also saw that the seats got painted with the same red pepper paint. And, you know, they're glossy. And that's that's not real good. So we got to tone these down. And we had to get another paint. This is Tester's Spray Enamel. Very important enamel. It's $8.49 at the Lobby of Hobby. This is dull coat. I believe they also make a dull coat that is lacquered. This is about the safest thing I think I would put on top of this, other than airbrushing a water-based acrylic. Do not put a lacquer over this, and here's why. So I did a spoon test, and this is the red pepper with the Tester's Enamel dull coat on it, and it went on pretty good. I mean, it gave it a nice flat finish, which is approved. And while I was buying the dull coat enamel, I decided to get some of the other enamel that is gloss coat. So you have dull coat and gloss coat. Both of these are enamels. So I was hoping that this glossy one could maybe make the flat black glossy black. And so here was the test. And as you can see, that enamel attacked this enamel. And it is crazed. It is not glossy at all. So buyer beware on enamel gloss coats on these cheap paints. Don't think we're going to need to use this, but it was just a test. We will not factor in the cost of this test in the cost of this build. Speaking of another thing that we're not going to factor in the cost of, some tape. And this is Tamiya tape, and it's not really all that cheap, but it is really good. And again, this was painted, you know, a week ago. And I'm gonna just put a real light coat of the dull coat on the dash pad portion of it, in which will leave, you know, a bunch of the glossy dash, which is metal in the real car, and give the illusion of the dash pad being flat, even though there is no real demarcation line for the dash pad or the speaker or the defroster vents, which I kind of like to see, but not on this model, and we're not going to add that detail. We're just going to it'll add a little bit of visual interest when you look through the windshield, instead of having a completely glossy or flat dashboard. So I just put the very, very light coat of dull coat on it, and it's starting to flash off, and that's kind of the look I'm going for right there. And it's not lifting the paint, which is good. I see a big old cat hair or something in there, but maybe not see that, but those look pretty good. So set those off to the side and see how much dull coat we actually used. Still at 135. I mean, it was literally about 6 squirts. After doing the math, 6 squirts came to about a dime's worth of paint. approximately.
So it's been about a week and I haven't touched this at all. Yep, there's the body. And that is, I got some dust from just sitting around. Oh, look, there I am. And, you know, it's not bad. Yes, it is dusty from sitting around for a week. But I'm hoping I can just put some Novus on this and push it on down the street. You know, it's for a cheap paint job, $3.99 for the can. That's what it's done. So, and you know, I'm not doing any kind of fancy photography here. Let's get that out of the way. And there is the hood and the firewall still on the steak. And dusty, of course, from sitting around. And the bodywork of molding in the little hood scoopy thing, not too bad. So we're gonna move forward with some of this stuff too here soon. So stay tuned.
This looks like a good stopping point. If we look at the cost of the actual amount of product that was used, I only have $16.39 in this model so far. Sure, it cost a little bit more to get the silver, white, and flat clear paint, but there was still plenty of those colors to use on another model. Just like the tools and glue, it's part of your hobby investment. Next time the fun begins with cost-effective engine how-tos, and we'll see how much bare metal foil really costs for this build. As always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, you know what to do, because I have all kinds of model car stories to tell. Thanks for watching.